Good evening and welcome to another Supreme Commander tutorial. In this video I'm going to teach you how to tie Reclaim into your builds. And this video in a sense completes your foundation to design your own map specific builds. I'm going to show you 6 build orders that use Reclaim. It's going to be some low power builds which use tree groups to delay T1 power generators, and this is how you can get faster air or speed up the scaling up of your land production. And some of these builds are going to be engineering assisted builds, which use mass reclaim to get some extra T1 power generators early on, and afford T1 engineers that assist your ACU in scaling up your base. And of course, combinations of both is common to see. So the first build I'm showing you is the 4 power generator second air assisted bomber first on Loki. A very complicated name for a build, but the name tells you exactly what it's doing. So again, 4 power generator second air assisted bomber first. This build is going to build 4 power generators in the core instead of the usual 8 to get assisted second air. You need 7 power generators for second air, and you need another power generator for assisting the second air, either having an engineer assisting the ACU in the construction of the whole thing, or for assisting the factory with the ACU in the construction of the bomber. That costs sort of the same. And instead of these 8 pigeons, this build is just gonna get 4. And the forest in the Hydra expansion is what gives this build a lot of power. Air requires a lot of power, so building early air and speeding up the production of early air units with that tree reclaim is the most obvious use of the forest. You guys probably like numbers. I am saying this in the most reserved way possible. 1 tree reclaiming engineer is about the same as 1.5 to 2.5 T1 power generators in income. So of course it's gonna depend on the density of the tree groups, whether they are broken, whether you use manual reclaim or automatic reclaim, and just a lot of factors, like whether there are rocks in between which you're also reclaiming, all that stuff. But in a map like these, where tree groups are close together, and there is little reason why the engineers wouldn't reclaim trees at all times. A span from 1.5 to 2.5 pigeons each NG replaces seems about reasonable. So this is just a rough orientation. So the bomber completes at 2:45, which is a lot earlier than using a build that doesn't use tree reclaim to speed it up. And now the ACU is going to build the pigeons it skipped earlier, because the NGs in the Hydra expansion are going to run out of trees eventually, or just stop reclaiming the trees to get the expansion. And when the power reclaim is no longer coming, you of course need the pigeons to not power stall with your setup. The bomber is going to hit the 3 mass extractor expansion next to the mountain on Loki. This is where all the mass is. This is where I send it. And this is also the reason why I send 2 tanks to that same expansion on my side, because some people like to raid it with 1 tank. Some people like to send a lab or 2, or even a tank and a lab and a scout to raid this expansion. And this is really where all the mass is on Loki. So not just the 3 mexes, but also the mass reclaim there with the small rocks. So losing this expansion hurts a lot, and the bomber is pretty much meant to deny the enemy 3 mex expansion and ideally also hit the Hydra expansion. So this build in a sense uses reclaim to deny reclaim. And this should really tell you how important it is to have a build that puts reclaim to optimal use, and to make sure the enemy can have the same build. This is how games are won on Loki, until you reach a level of play that's high level enough for everybody to have this type of build. And then you see things like a 5 Pgen second air fighter first to shoot down enemy bombers. And you see a lot of other creative uses of early reclaim. And then the game can continue, because if both players are playing at that level, then it stays balanced and there is going to be well, quite a competitive fight happening. But people who don't have these builds typically just die in the first couple of minutes on Loki, because they can't keep their own expansions and they can't operate their setup, not using the reclaim they're meant to use. There are many more maps in which you can use tree reclaim to speed up early air, and Wonder is one of these. And Wonder is a sort of an extreme case, because here you have so many trees so close together around your starting position that you can pull off insane builds. So the build I'm showing you now is the 2 Pgen second air assisted Jester first. Just like last time, the build does exactly what it says in the name. So this build is going to get a quick ACU assisted Jester from the second air factory, which is almost the same timing you get from getting a first air Jester. Well, not quite the same, but like still super early and way earlier than common types of assisted second air Jester first builds. And all of that on just 2 power generators. This is going to be a risky raid-centric opening, and it is meant to like build this very fast Jester and also 3 Mantis bots, which cripple the enemy early on. And well, this requires 3 engineers reclaiming tree groups instead of expanding. They are just there to get the reclaim. They're going to be on manual reclaim with movement orders in between, really trying here to stop in front of the tree groups, reclaim them, and only after they are reclaimed you want to go over them and take the next one. You don't want to break any of them, because this is how the trees can't be reclaimed as a group anymore, but as individual standalone trees, and it's also going to take much longer to reclaim them at all. So try not to rely on automatic reclaim at all using this build, and try not to break too many tree groups. Broke some with the NG top right, but this is still going to work out. But I just want to like really point out how low power 2 power assisted second air Jester first is. That is like as low power as it gets, pretty much. This build is well, in a very vulnerable state, vulnerable to raid and to like prone to mistakes as well with the reclaim until the Hydra completes. But as soon as the 3 NGs, the 2 Land Scouts and the 3 Mantis bots are leaving the core, the next NG that comes out of that factory is going to start the Hydra, and the ACU is going to complete it. And as soon as the Hydra is complete, this build is pretty safe and it performs well, pretty much just like any other build that's well, available on Wonder. So if you want to like, if you have a limited time span in which you can focus, make sure you're focusing until the Hydra is complete, and then you can take it easy, right? Now at 2:45, the 3 Mantis bots and the Jester are simultaneously entering enemy territory, and this is quite lethal. So some people will just die at this point, because they won't have any expansions, they won't have any NGs, and they're out of the game for the next 10 or so minutes. And when you start scaling up your setup, they are in the Stone Age. This is sort of the idea. Condition is that you don't run into the ACU, and well, the Jester, well, that typically works quite well, because on Wonder most air players go second mechs to stay in the eco game. They don't go second air, they go third air. And builds like this fast Jester are one of the reasons why mid players on Wonder should go second air. But turns out most people don't go second air, even if they are a mid player. And that is why builds like these tend to work extremely well, as long as you're not running into the enemy ACU. If the enemy has tanks to kill your Mantis bots, you can of course just use the Jester while still online to kill the tanks trying to kill your tanks will stay alive and they can butcher enemy engineers for a long time. So happy raiding with this one. The next build that uses tree reclaim I want to show you is on the land wilderness. It's a 3 Pgen second land, 5 Pgen third land. So the second land factory would typically require 5 Pgens to operate, but instead I'm getting 2 Pgens less, and this essentially also makes the second land factory complete 2 Pgens earlier, which is quite a lot of time. This results in a time-based production lead. And the third land factory usually requires 6 Pgens, but I'm just gonna have 5 by the time it finishes, and the build is still not gonna power stall. So this is a good way of getting land factories faster. If they complete faster, they will have had more time to build tanks, and this is how you get an early net advantage in tanks. So that is quite useful as well. If you have tree reclaim around your starting position, depending on the map and your strategy, you don't necessarily want to put it into air units just because air units are power expensive, but you can also put it into faster additional land factories and get your advantage from that. The first NG is headed to the largest expansion, and on the way it's going to reclaim quite a lot of trees. Second NG is headed to the middle of the map, and the third NG is going to go to an expansion on the right. This expansion has some rock reclaim, and I feel like most people are prioritizing this rock reclaim unnecessarily. I don't go for it fast, because if I get it fast, I end up just not using it for anything and overflowing mass. So I like it better to get the rock reclaim only after I know for sure that I can tie it into my build, and that's why I'm prioritizing the trees over the rocks. I have 2 early tanks, so unit number 4 is a tank followed by a scout, and the next unit is also gonna be a tank followed by a scout, and these arrive quite early on the enemy side of the map, and they're gonna raid the 2 expansions. I'm sending the first tank to the expansion with the rock reclaim, not because I think it's the best expansion to raid, but just because I know that most people prioritize that expansion. Even though it's not smart to prioritize it, I wanna like match their expansion style with my raiding, because otherwise my tank is going to be in the place I would expand to, but I don't find an engineer there, so I sent the tank there for no reason. That's why I'm prioritizing the rock expansion with the raid, but as soon as people will figure out that this expansion is not one they should prioritize, I will of course send my first tank to the expansion bottom right and my second tank to the expansion bottom left, and not the other way around. And this is how I have like a setup that has good scale, some interactive elements, good raid, and it also has like like I don't even know what I want to say. It's great. Okay, just try it out. Something, yeah. For the rest of this simulation, I'll just get well, the AC is gonna leave the base as soon as I run out of reclaim, and the NGs that stay in the base will take over in the construction of what's left, and what's left is of course air. So if I meet early air, I have enough land factories to make mobile anti-air and replace the engineers the bomber's killing. I can dodge with engineers, and I can reclaim the dead bomber, and I can reclaim the dead NGs. So running into early air is typically not a huge problem with this build, but you don't want to rely on mobile anti-air forever. You want to put the factories back into a full combat group mix with as little anti-air as possible, and that's why you gotta get air at some point. And I'm getting air now after 4 factories. This is timed in a way that the hydro I'm building with 2 NGs and the pigeons around the air factory are well, going to let the air factory go for fast T2 air. So if I see that air is a huge problem because somebody went, let's say, 3 or 4 air factories, that sometimes happen because I'm playing Aeon and my tanks are very vulnerable to air. If I see that, I can go a fast T2 air, get my SWIP wins, and well, clean the air. But if I see that air is not a huge problem, I can just not get T2 air and instead get my gun upgrade on the ACU, or perhaps get a T2 upgrade on the ACU and a mass extractor upgrade. So this power I'm getting is giving me lots of options in how to continue the game. So I hope with the tree reclaim based builds I could show you how to use tree reclaim for various purposes. And well, note that some of these builds already had elements of engineering assistance. So for example, on Loki, when I had one engineer still reclaiming the forest around the hydro, I could use that power to assist my ACU with one engineer in the construction of Pgens and land factories after the second air completed. And my NGs headed to the 3 mass extractor expansion up top, got the mass to make sure I can afford this. And the build on the land wilderness also had 2 engineers assisting my ACU for a short time until the ACU left the base and the NGs could take over in the construction of the air factory. So as soon as you have mass reclaim, you can pretty much always put that into assisting engineers and extra Pgens. But let us take a look at some builds that are specifically designed around exploiting engineering assistance now.